Yes, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of What Suits You. And today I have with me, myself, and I. So today I'm going to be talking about something that was on my mind today as I was walking to the commissary. And I was listening to a motivational speech done in like 19 whatever by Earl Nightingale. And he was talking about having a good attitude. And I was like, man, this really kind of struck a chord with me. I'll leave it down in the description. So if you're interested in kind of hearing what that was about and learning, what he was saying, you guys can go ahead and over and look at that for yourself. But today what I want to talk about is when men are at their best. And what kind of got me thinking about this is that Mr. Nightingale, he was talking about, when people have a good attitude, good things happen. Just like when people have a bad attitude, bad things happen. He says anytime someone is successful, it's because they already have a successful attitude. Now, obviously, you have to put in work with that, right? But you won't believe that you can put in the work if your attitude is broken, because your attitude regulates your belief system, and your belief systems regulate how you act and how you move. If somebody says that they're a Christian or a Muslim and they are devout to their faith, there's going to be certain things that they do and they don't do. And I think that holds true as well when it comes to attitude and being successful. So the two main points that I'm going to talk about is when men are at their best is when they have a strong enemy to beat and when they have something that they want to protect, right? Now, these things go hand in hand. I don't really think that you can have one without the other. But at the end, I'm going to say what I believe happens when you have one without the other. What I mean by that is, in nature and in life, chances are if you have a strong enemy, even if the person you want to protect is just yourself, you still want to protect that thing, right? And let's say you have a kid, let's say you're a parent, you want to protect your child from the outside world, which is a strong enemy. So I think that these things go hand in hand, right? But I think men are their best when they have a strong enemy because it pushes them to be better. We see examples of this in one of my favorite animated series, Dragon Ball Z, right? Anytime a strong enemy comes down to Earth, the Z fighters are always waiting on Goku. Like, yo, somebody get Goku, get Goku, get Goku. And then Goku comes down. He gets beat up, let's be honest. He gets beat up for a little bit, then he has a transformation, and then it makes him better. It makes him stronger, and then he's able to beat up the bad guy that's in front of him, right? I think the same thing happens to individuals as well, especially when they're on their path to be successful. When I started doing like podcasting, and you guys can just go to the channel and see, I was not consistent at all because I didn't think that I could do it. I was like, there's no way that I have anything important to say that's going to want to get people to listen. There's no way that people are going to click on a video and listen to my podcast. At the time, I was like, even I don't listen to my own episodes. So my belief system was broken. My attitude was messed up. You know what I mean? But in these series, another example of this is in Rocky. Especially the first Rocky. He was a nobody. He was a bum. Nobody knew who this dude was. And yet and still, he had a title shot to fight the champion and went the distance. You know what I'm saying? It went to round 14? If I remember correctly, this guy who was an absolute nobody went from, barely training or training hard, but his heart wasn't in it. He had no motivation. He didn't have really anything that he was running towards or anything that he was running from while he was running towards the thing he was running towards. But after he went 14 rounds with the champ, he kind of had some pep in his step. He kind of started to believe, and other people started to believe. And even in the second movie, if I remember correctly, people started calling him champ. Like, nah, you won that fight. That was you. You know what I mean? So those are just some examples. When men have a strong enemy in front of them, a hurdle, a wall, they go, okay, how the hell am I going to get over this? You know what I mean? What can I do to get over this? What can I do to get through this? I need to get over this wall. I need to climb this mountain. Because if I don't, my family is going to suffer. If I don't, my wife and my children are going to starve, which brings us to our next point. They have something that they want to protect. Again, I keep bringing up Dragon Ball Z just because I'm a huge, well, maybe not so much these days. I haven't really watched it as often, but I was a huge Dragon Ball Z kind of nerd growing up. I love all anime, right? And you see this in Naruto as well. It's a running theme in a lot of the shows that we find great. Strong enemy, something to protect. Antagonist, protagonist, right? But again, you know, Goku can take a beating for himself. He's just like, man, I'm losing this fight. I'm taking an L. But you lay hands on one of his friends or one of his people, then it's up. You know what I'm saying? Now he's going Super Saiyan whatever. You know what I mean? And he's dragging this dude. If you threaten the earth, he's like, all my friends, all my people live here. This is what we do. It's the same thing in life. You know what I mean? On a lesser scale, I believe when I'll use boxing for an example. The reason you train hard is because you don't want to get knocked out. Like, you don't want to get hurt. You don't want, you know what I'm saying, that public embarrassment or whatever the case may be. But if somebody breaks into the house, you know what I mean? That's a whole different level of violence that's going to be, I guess, exerted upon the intruder, because they're not only threatening me, they're threatening my home, they're threatening the people that I care about, the people that I love. So I don't really give a damn what happens to them and their well-being for trying to threaten mine. You know what I mean? But when you have a strong enemy in front of you and something that you want to protect behind you, I think that's when men are at their best. I think that's what pushes them, and I think that's what absolutely gets men to the next level and gets men to become better. And I know in the examples that I gave, I kind of framed it to where it was like you and then an enemy and then people behind you. But the same way how you could be the thing that you want to protect is also the same way that the enemy could also be you. It could be your bad habits. It could be your bad attitude. It could be the things that you are constantly doing on a day-to-day basis that you know you shouldn't be doing, but you still are doing them anyways. And if you stop doing those things, your life would be so much better. You can also be your own enemy. And the thing about life is when you are your own enemy, that's the hardest enemy to beat, because you know yourself. You know how to push your buttons. You know how to take a day off and not feel bad about it. You know how to make up an excuse to where it sounds good on paper and no one's gonna call you out on your BS, but you know deep down inside that you didn't do the absolute best that you could today. And if you keep lying to other people and lying to yourself, then you're gonna live the life of a liar. And if you're living the life of a liar, I refuse to believe that that's a good life that anybody would want. I don't think anybody wakes up and go, man, I can't wait to just start lying today. I can't wait to just fool myself or try to fool myself and fool other people around me so they think that I'm something great when I'm really not. And the reason why I can speak so passionately about this is because I've done those things before. I've said that I was gonna get up at 5 a.m. and go to the gym and then didn't get out of bed until noon. But people were like, oh, did you hit the gym? And I was like, yeah, man, you know, whatever. Was able to lie and make it sound like I hit the gym just so I didn't have to deal with the emotional, I guess, embarrassment or having to deal with the feeling that I let myself down. Sometimes you are your biggest enemy. But here's the silver lining in all of this is when you are your biggest enemy and you defeat that enemy, no other enemies stand a chance against you. When you understand, hey, I'm doing these things, I don't need to do these things. And it's not gonna happen all at once. For some people it might, but for most people it won't. It's a process. You have to replace habits. You know, if you're watching pornography all the time, you just stop cold turkey, it's gonna seem like you have all this free time on your hands because that's normally the time you'd be spanking it, you know what I mean? But if you replace that habit with a more productive habit, you know, one step at a time, like, okay, like Jordan Peterson talks about this as a clinical psychologist. He says, you know, you have to break down one system in your brain while you're creating another system in your brain. So if you're taking all this time to watch porn, let's say your average porn watch is like 30 minutes. Okay, now let's tape it back to 25 minutes. See, the last 5 minutes, you're gonna read a book. And you keep doing that over and over and over again. And eventually you now read books instead of doing something that's not as productive. And you can use any example that you want. For me, it was running and taking cold showers. I hate running. Well, I hated running. Well, I still don't like running. I disliked running and taking cold showers. So I started to do it more. And anytime that I thought about running, I'd be like, no, I'm just gonna go lift weights instead. Not because that was more productive, but because it was easier for me to lie to myself and say that, oh yeah, I'm being more productive by lifting weights when I know I'm gonna go in there and just half-ass my workouts. But I'll feel good enough about myself to lie and then be like, well, I worked out today, so I don't have to run, right? So I started running. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't fun, but I did it. And then I kept doing it and I kept doing it. So now on the days where I don't run, I lift weights, and where I'm actually pushing myself, or I'll do a body weight exercises. I've started doing body weight exercises because I find those harder. Like doing an overhead press with a barbell is way easier than doing a handstand push-up. Doing a hand, like even assisted, it's still very, very, very difficult. So I just started doing that instead. I was like, I'm just gonna start doing bodyweight stuff because I think that's a lot harder, right? But when you are your biggest enemy, any enemies that stand in front of you, they don't stand a chance. They don't stand a chance. You've beaten the big boss. What is this? You know, I figured out my bad attitudes. I've meditated. I've worked on myself. What is a girl rejecting me? You know, what is that? I've written down on my journal how I want to get better. I've written and this is important, I've written a to-do list and I've written a not to-do list. Your not to-do list is just as important, maybe even more important than your to-do list, because it gives you something to run away from and it gives you something to run towards, right? I know I kind of went on a ramble there, but I think it all makes sense. When you are able to beat the biggest enemy, which is yourself and your bad habits, what you don't want to be, you inevitably will become a better man. You inevitably will become a better person, right? That is your strong enemy to beat, as well as the thing you want to protect. You want to protect your future. You want to protect your potential. You don't want to squander what you could be in life simply because you didn't put in the work to get rid of a couple of bad habits. Okay, so that is what you want to protect. At the end, or at the beginning of this, I said at the end, I will say what I think happens when you don't have a strong enemy in front of you or something that you want to protect. I think when that is the situation, and I can't think of any good examples, but when that okay, here's an example. Maybe after you retire, right? Let's say after you retired, you worked 30 years or 20 years or whatever, and you retire, right? You've done it all, quote unquote. You've reached the top of the mountain. What ends up happening is that your life gets very, very comfortable. You have all the money that you could ever want, you know, you have all the women, whatever your vice is, you can just give into it all the time. But that's the issue, is that you can just give into your vices at any time. And when your life gets too comfortable, it literally kills you. Literally, not figuratively, it literally kills you. If you look at people on the internet that make money simply from eating copious amounts of food, living a life of comfort. Anytime that there's comfort, there's always health issues. There's always health issues. And obviously there's health issues and scarcity as well. I'm not saying, okay, if you have an abundance, that's the only way to be unhealthy. No. What I'm saying is people always want to go to the path of least resistance. Why would I cook food when I can just throw $10 at this app and then have the food brought to me? You know, why would I take a cold shower when I have an abundance of hot water? I could leave the hot water running while I leave the house, come back, the water is still hot. Why would I take a cold shower? You know, why do I need to download? Why do I need to buy DVDs when I have Netflix? You know, people always want to go to the path of least resistance. And if you don't have a goal in front of you or an enemy to beat or something that you want to protect, you become aimless. You become soft because your mind gets soft because you go, okay, the fight is over. You know, we're gonna leave now. I don't want to mess up this saying, but there's a saying that says, strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. Weak men create hard times, and hard times create strong men. That cycle starts and ends with strong men. So get up, do something that is difficult today, and stay a strong man. So that way we don't have to deal with hard times. Thank you for listening. This has been What Suits You. Please consider liking the video, subscribing if you found this content useful or helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.